headlines, sorting through the media bias, exposing the propaganda, and challenging you to use your brain. It's time to tap into the truth.
Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed time to tap into the truth. With you, as always, this is your host, Tim Tapp, coming to you live from historic Roane County, Tennessee. And tonight I'm asking a very important question. Why in the crap are we talking about a rodeo clown? Look, first of all, this was essentially a non-issue, as it should have stayed. But, as usual, the folks on the left, desperate for distraction and looking for some kind of controversy that equals to nothing, have once again managed to blow something so far out of proportion that they're going to ruin the lives of people who are doing nothing more than entertaining a crowd, exercising free speech, and, oh yeah, by the way, being funny while they were at it. Oh, well, maybe you don't appreciate that sense of humor, and that's well and good enough. It doesn't matter if you liked it or not. It doesn't matter if you thought it was funny. But guess what? Most of us would have never even known it happened, because most of us were not at the rodeo. And yet, letting it go, leaving it alone, just isn't good enough, is it? What are we really talking about here? Somebody put on an Obama mask at the Missouri State Fair? At a rodeo event? Now, first and foremost, it is not against the law to poke fun at a sitting president. If it was, late night television would have had to have been done away with a long time ago. Every single person that's ever hosted The Tonight Show or any show similar to that has done worlds of comedy skits based on sitting presidents, and those people who are still applying for the job, campaigning, hoping to become president, or even vice president for that matter. Where would Saturday Night Live be without the ability to poke fun at the sitting presidents? There is nothing unusual or unique about the fact that this particular rodeo, or any other, had made reference to the sitting president. Oh, but this was particularly heinous. This was particularly disrespectful to the office. Well, I got bad news for you, little libbies. There has been nothing more disrespectful to the office of the president than the current occupier of the White House. Why are we still fascinated and fixated and talking on and on about this one event for the poor rodeo clown who now has been banned for life from performing at the Missouri State Fair? All the other participants that are members of the Missouri Cowboy Association now have to go to sensitivity training? Hello, excuse me. If a single cowboy anywhere goes to sensitivity training, they have no business getting back in the stall and trying to ride a bull or a bucking bronco. You cannot be sensitive and be a cowboy. Not by their definition of sensitive. There's nothing wrong with actually being sensitive in a actual, well-defined by Webster's dictionary kind of way. Oh, but that's not what they're talking about here. They want sensitivity training. What was insensitive about this? Hello, a buttload of folks in the heartland are mad as crap about Obama and his policies and the jobs they've lost, and if they manage to scrape together enough pennies to go to the freaking rodeo and enjoy and laugh a little if somebody says, hey, would you like to see this guy get run over? Ooh, that's terribly insensitive. But guess what? It was an actual clown, so his primary purpose is to distract the bull from the riders when they come off of the bull. And then, if at all possible, get out of the way. He had no intention of sitting there and actually letting the bull run over him. It wasn't actual political satire. It was meant to be a little quick wisecrack, semi-funny joke. And it's not even as if this is a first. Oh, no. But you see, that just goes back showing you the hypocrisy of the left. This has been blown out of proportion. Why? Because they don't want you focusing on what you should be focusing on. That's why this continues to blow up. It has become an issue, and it is a legitimate issue now, because this person was simply doing his job. And for whatever reason, this particular skit came forth, and now his livelihood has been damaged. Well, yeah, you shouldn't have been doing that. Are you going to say the same thing to Jay Leno? Leno's been coming hard after Obama lately. Oh, he hadn't put on an Obama mask. But guess what? Given what's happened over the extent of the backlash from this story, don't be surprised if you don't see a lot of the late night folks and the Saturday Night Live folks have Obama masks on for their various skits. Is anybody going to come down hard on them? Is there going to be the same level of backlash? Oh, I doubt it. But where were these folks at when, I don't know, let's say, for example, back in 1994? That was when a dummy wearing a President George H.W. mask propped up by a broomstick was employed as a decoy during a bull riding contest. And according to one member of the Missouri Rodeo Cowboy Association who was at Saturday's event, they told the Associated Press that there was nothing offensive or unusual about the rodeo clown's actions. He was trying to look like a dummy, and that rodeo clowns have long performed such acts, often imitating sitting presidents. The joke is not that it was the president. They drag out this person dressed like a dummy, and all of a sudden the dummy just takes off running. That's what's funny. The only difference between then and now is the hypersensitivity and the obvious double standard that applies to the first African American president. Hypersensitivity that was on full display when the apparent Obama supporter who drew attention to the incident, Perry Beam, said that it felt, quote, like some kind of Klan rally you'd see on TV. That may explain part of why race relations in the United States are currently imploding under Obama's tutelage. The fact that these people are so hypersensitive, and it's an excuse. It's a stall tactic. It's a delay. Ooh, don't look at what I'm actually doing. Let's look over here. Why would he be concerned? Why would he embrace it? Why would he now have the White House make an official statement? It's certainly not Missouri's finest hour. Why? Why even bother? Did George H. Bush come out and say, you shouldn't have done that? No, he let it go. Why? Because you should expect that kind of thing when you're sitting in the Oval Office. You should expect it even more if you're a do-nothing loser who can't seem to get anything accomplished other than name-pointing and campaigning for crap that's only going to make things worse. That is the only accomplishment this man has under his belt since his arrival into the realm of politics. And that starts back as a state whatever back in Illinois. This man is a front man. He's not the brains of the operation. He's a smooth-talking little devil that has the ability to glamour and confuse and portray himself as something far more than what he is. If you ask me, point blank and quite simply, the Missouri State Fair has banned the wrong clown. And as far as the sensitivity training goes, I think we all know how well that actually works anyway, so why bother? As far as I'm concerned, if the Cowboy Association and the Rodeo Association don't stand up and protect this guy, then they all deserve to lose whatever opportunities that they may have. Because it's been turned into a pointed attack on someone who, in this case, at best, was engaged in free speech. At worst, and most likely more accurately, was just trying to do his job, and it just so happened that they picked the Obama mask. Just as I'm pretty sure the same group of folks, had Obama not been re-elected, occupier, then it probably would have been a Romney mask that this guy had on. Point is, they do this a lot, and it's whomever is in the White House. I didn't hear any outrage or any talk about disrespect when George W. Bush was constantly being portrayed as a chimpanzee. Where was the outrage then? Oh, well, it's right up there with the same level of outrage that you see coming from Nancy Pelosi over at the Slap Hillary website, which I still haven't had a chance to check out, by the way. I probably should check that out at some point. The Slap Hillary website is not funny, and just like all violence against women, it's stupid, and the GOP needs to grow up and they need to take this site down. That's what Pelosi said in a series of tweets last Friday. Only the GOP hasn't put the site up. It is a special interest group that's been around since 2000 that calls themselves the Hillary Project, that is intent on waging war against the image of Hillary Clinton. Basically, they're trying to make Americans hip to the fact that Hillary Clinton is not to be trusted and is not the great and powerful female leader that everyone's been led to believe in the Democratic Party. But where was Miss Pelosi when it came to the Slap Sarah Palin site, which is still up, been around way longer, by the way, a site that encourages folks on the left to try to slap some sense into Sarah Palin. And that's not enough there, because they also include a sexually explicit photoshopped image that's supposed to be Sarah. Where's the outrage there? Where's the complaint about violence against women? No opportunity to accuse the Republicans of that fictitious war on women, I suppose? But you know what? This is good for Obama. This is great for the occupier, because once again, he has to go back into operating business as usual with nobody looking. There's two big, major things going on right now that we need to be aware of that most people are missing the boat on because they're too busy talking about the rodeo clown. The rodeo clown's getting screwed. This is a bad deal. There should never have been this backlash, and it's just whiny, ultra hypersensitive libs that need to pull up the big boy panties. Well, big boy pants, big girl panties. Well, whatever. They need to freaking grow up. And we need to be talking about why Obama's sending $250 billion more to the rebels, a.k.a. Al-Qaeda, in Syria. Isn't it enough that they've taken shoulder-fired missiles from Benghazi? Isn't it enough that these people are trying to blow us up and kill us now with the stuff we're giving them? Well, they just don't have enough to get the job done yet, so let's give them $250 billion more. In various forms, of course, not all cash. But why aren't we talking about that? Well, because there's a rodeo clown in the news. There's some pretty big clowns in the news 100% of the time if you're talking about politicians. And that's regardless of which party you want to pick. Both sides are full of clowns of various humorous effect. What else should we be talking about? I don't know. Maybe the announcement that Jay Carney came out and said himself that Obama will be signing the UN Arms Trade Treaty before the end of August. Quote, "We believe it's in the interest of the United States." Well, it's very strategic timing, isn't it? When you stop and consider the fact that Congress is now on a 5-week vacation that lasts through the remainder of the month of August. I mean, this is simply a backdoor tactic that's nothing new for the occupier and his administration. I mean, that's basically why they're using the tactics of the backdoor method, because Congress has already rejected this. Somehow now he thinks that the same policy applies. The recess appointments, well, this is a recess treaty signing. He doesn't have the legal grounds to do it. Now, everybody and their grandmother needs to use the tactic of going to their town hall meetings coming up so that they can have their voices heard. Congress can still go back and reject the small arms treaty, even if he signs it. But here's the ultimate thing that every red-blooded, air-breathing American needs to keep in mind. This treaty that he's about to sign can never be honored in the United States as long as our Constitution is the supreme law of the land. And I, for one, am far beyond the point of being fed up and over this pompous, arrogant, bloviated, teleprompter reading, mount to nothing, who was supposed to be a constitutional scholar, completely ignoring the Constitution. He has admitted that his little efforts to ignore provisions of the Affordable Care Act is, in fact, unconstitutional, but he can't actually go about it the constitutional way because the mean old Republicans would stop him. How does he figure that when they don't even have the cojones, at least the party leadership and the establishment Republicans over in the House, to stand up and defund Obamacare in the first place? Well, it's not the way to go about it. We'll be just picking a fight. Mr. Boehner, please do your job. Protect the American citizens from the horror that will be Obamacare. If the Senate Democrats and the president, or the guy pretending to be the president, demands a government shutdown in their little tantrum to get you to fund Obamacare, you make them go on the record and you go out to every news outlet you can find and you tell the American people, we didn't not fund the government, we just didn't fund Obamacare because it's going to hurt people. And we are supposed to be trying to protect Americans. Our job is to govern. More importantly, in the House and in the Senate, our job is to legislate. It is not the job of the executive branch to legislate, which is exactly what Obama is doing in his attempt to delay the corporate mandates of Obamacare. And then instead of defunding, I hear a lot of Republicans saying that we just need to delay the individual mandates. Well, if we keep delaying everything until after the next election, what do you think is going to happen? The folks that still haven't woke up to the fact of how bad this is going to hurt them yet will keep drinking the Kool-Aid. They'll vote for a few more Democrats, and then it will all be over but the crying. Because this goes into full effect, there'll be no stopping it. It's like trying to do away with Social Security today. Social Security is completely and totally unconstitutional. The federal government never had any business ever trying to get into the retirement business, but beyond that, they just ran a big Ponzi scheme, and they never left the money alone in the first place. Because there's just a few things that politicians, especially career politicians, can't stand. Number one is having money somewhere available and not spending it. And number two, having the opportunity to go buy some votes and not doing it. This really still comes back to the American people not keeping an eye on what their elected representatives have been doing. We must stop re-electing the same people over and over again. We've got to put the kibosh in. If we're not going to put term limits in place for these offices, then we need to make sure that we, no matter how much we like somebody, no matter how great of a job we think they're doing, we can't keep sending these folks back because even the best among them get their heads turned after enough time and enough money and enough peddling. And how much temptation do you expect people to be able to take? Under our current culture, you shouldn't expect them to be tempted very much at all before things get twisted around. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to continue this discussion. Stay with us. Tap into the truth. Check us out at tapintothetruth.com for our latest blog posts and for links to all of our past broadcasts. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and to follow us on Twitter. That's Tap Into the Truth right here on Spreaker Radio. That's That's right. We are back here with Tap Into the Truth. Thanks for staying with us. Thanks for listening. While you're here, if you don't mind too terribly much, would greatly appreciate it if you'd go ahead and click the follow button. Still trying to get the number of followers up both here and over at the Blog Talk version of the show. Over at Blog Talk, we have a 2-hour broadcast that we do once a week, every Sunday, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. While you're also looking around for other formats, if you are an iTunes subscriber, both the Spreaker and the Blog Talk versions of Tap Into the Truth are available. And now the Blog Talk version of the show is part of the Stitcher Radio On Demand format. Stitcher happens to be a free downloadable app that lets you listen to the best of talk radio and literally tens of thousands of live radio stations. A service that's very similar to a certain other service that a lot of folks here at Spreaker are trying to get involved with currently. I'll not name them by name as they are competition, and I very much would like to get this show onto the other service in question. But regardless, Stitcher.com is the place to go to download this particular app. One of the best apps of 2012, according to several rating systems, among the top 20 by almost all the tech guides that were rating top apps of 2012. If you download this app, you also can go to your app store, by the way. They have formats that work for iPhones, formats that work for Androids, and for most tablets. Once you have the app on there, you can choose and select your shows based on your taste. There is no syncing. There is no memory storage taken up. No downloading. They play straight from the app, and you don't even have to have Wi-Fi or a direct cellular connection at the time. Beyond that, they're just a great service. And we, here at Tap Into the Truth, are very pleased to be part of the Stitcher Radio On Demand network. Hope you'll check us out there sometime. It is the Blog Talk show. Would still love to get the Spreaker version available over there soon, too. We'll see what we can do. In the meanwhile, let's get back to the topic at hand, shall we? The question's still the same. Why are we talking about a rodeo clown? This was a story that I honestly didn't think would be hitting the mainstream topics long enough for me to even ask this question on the air. I figured it would pretty much be over with, a done story yesterday. I thought that would come to the head and they would move on. But then this insanity of what they're doing to this guy, and now what they're making all the rodeo folks do with the sensitivity training, and the NAACP now is demanding an investigation by the Secret Service into this particular act. Why? Hello, excuse me, why? Can anybody explain to me why the Secret Service should be investigating this rodeo clown? Did the Secret Service ever investigate any of the previous rodeo clowns that wore Ford mask or Reagan mask or either of the Bush president mask or even the Bill Clinton mask, for crying out loud? Why is this different? And why weren't you calling for an investigation then if you think this was serious enough for the Secret Service to be concerned? No, ladies and gentlemen, it is simple and straightforward. You question a policy of this socialist degenerate who is so anti-American that he makes Stalin look like Captain America, and you're automatically a racist. Why? Because it's the only trick left that they have that sometimes works. But even it's not working as well as it used to because it's wearing really thin. Most Americans, including a large number of African Americans, are getting fed up with hearing the accusation of racism when there's some pretty obvious criticisms that are legitimate that have nothing to do with the color of the man's skin. It comes to a point that Americans are waking up to the fact that socialism doesn't work. For crying out loud, even Bono is out now making statements that capitalism is what we need. You can't say that in a room full of socialists. You certainly can't say that in a room full of Muslims. Why? Well, because Sharia has a different system. So regardless of what your opinion about the occupier may be, why not just ignore the whole rodeo clown situation? Why did you have to make a statement? It wasn't necessary. It doesn't even matter if someone in the press corps asked the question. You just say, it's a non-event. Next question. Ignore it. Because it doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. For crying out loud. What harm was done? There is a great apology letter that I don't know if it was actually ever sent directly to the occupier or not, but it's made its way around the internet. I've even posted it over at Tap Into the Truth Facebook page, along with several dozen other postings today. So you might have to spend a few minutes to look it up. I will probably put a link to it in the show description once this goes into the archives if you want to check it out. But the bottom line is it's so funny because it's a satirical apology and basically points out how big of a freaking baby you have to be for stuff like this to bother you. At some point in the world of politics, you are supposed to develop a thick skin. At some point, living a real life that's not sheltered, where you have to do things on your own, where you have to be responsible for yourself, you develop a thick skin. You have to, because we don't live in a world that's just sunshine, rainbows, unicorns, and happy non-rodeo clowns. We live in a world where we have sunny days and we have rainy days. We live in a world where we have to be ready to put down sound bags, where we have to be ready to start bailing, or we have to be ready to abandon ship and try to start building new when crap hits the fan. But if you're not accustomed to that, if you've had a great deal of things handed to you, if you haven't had to earn very much of the accolades that you've received over time, then you never really had to develop that thick skin, have you? I mean, seriously, let's take a look at I was going to call him the Obama, but you know what? Let's take a look at what the occupier's trajectory to bring him to the White House has looked like. Let's see. Once he started attending college back in the States, once they came back to the States from Indonesia, he had his school paid for through scholarships and financial aid that most people tend to think happen to be foreign student aid, because that's really the only reason, other than his obvious bad grades, that he would want to keep his collegiate record sealed. He then still managed to get into Ivy League schools after a secret trip to Pakistan. Again, with not having the type of grades that typically are required for you to get into an Ivy League school. So how did that happen? Somebody was pulling strings. He was again having things handed to him. Bill Ayers decides that you should get into politics, and we're going to help you. And then Bill Ayers ghost writes a couple of books for him, and then somebody writes some really great speeches for him. And the one thing that Occupier is really good at is being able to read that damn teleprompter. I'm reading it right now, and the worst thing that somebody could do is put the Constitution up there, because then I'd have to read it again. And I'd probably say half of it before I realized what it was. That's Barack Obama. But for crying out loud, people, you're attacking someone who is wearing a mask for humorous effect. And it's my understanding the crowd actually enjoyed it at the time. There certainly wasn't this backlash from the crowd. There was a roar from the crowd, and woo! Yeah! Oh, it's like I was at a Klan meeting. I seriously wonder if this individual has any idea what a Klan meeting is really like. I know myself, I don't, because I've never attended one. However, it's my understanding that it would be very different than just folks cheering at a rodeo. I would think that would fall into the realm of common sense, but let's keep in mind that in this wonderful modern age we're living in, common sense has become an oxymoron, and it has become so rare that it's almost a superpower. Look out. Here comes the liberal kryptonite. Common sense is gone. Now they'll drink the Kool-Aid, and they'll keep believing me. At some point, though, doesn't things start to click? It's just another distraction, people. So let's please, if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about it in the context that we should, and that is that this is freaking ridiculous. This guy should not be ostracized. He should not be banned for life from performing in the Missouri State. Missouri's not doing itself any favors by trying to PC this into making it right, because there was no crime here. This wasn't an attack on the president. This was a humorous bit of satire that's been done regarding every sitting president since rodeos existed and went on while there were presidents. Is it disrespectful? Yeah, you could probably make that argument. But since when does the freedom of speech require you to be 100% respectful at all times? Are you going to go after these satirical comedians who have also said things about your president? I say yours because he's not my president. He occupies that office, but he is not duly elected, and as far as I can tell, the question of his eligibility to hold that office has never been settled. The Supreme Court has went so far as to come up with technicalities to keep from hearing the case of his eligibility. That doesn't settle it. That just means they don't want any part of it. Why? Well, let's see. Maybe there's some NSA blackmailing going on. We closed down embassies last week because of a threat. Really? Really? I don't buy it. And most of the people I've talked to don't buy it. Most of them think something else was going on. To the extent of what it was, a lot of folks don't know. But this is still more distraction. That, I think, is all about trying to scare everyone into saying, yes, please, Mr. Government Guy, take our rights away. Keep spying on us. What else could there be? Sure, there are some other things it could be. But for crying out loud, I surely hope that it isn't exactly what he said it was, because it's not very American, Mr. Occupier, for us to run scared and lock the doors because some boogeyman makes a threat. It's even less American for us to be giving money and weapons to these same boogeymen that are making those threats. Now, depending on your sources of information, if you listen to Alex Jones, he says, well, the government runs Al-Qaeda. Seems like they do seem to pull a lot of strings for Al-Qaeda, at least as far as what's going on in Yemen and in Syria. And what about what's going on in Egypt right now? Egypt went nuts again today. They had to do crackdowns on the pro-Muslim Brotherhood demonstrators. Got kind of bloody. The chair organization demanded Obama intervene on behalf of the Muslim Brotherhood. That came out today. Excuse me. For the next little bit, this is still August 14th, 2003. And in the process of having to look at what we're talking about, what business do we have of getting involved in an Egyptian civil war? What business do we have of funding and providing weapons to Al-Qaeda for a Syrian takeover? As best as I can tell, we're just getting an idea of which type of Islam the occupier prefers, Sunni or Shiite. Which is it? Take a look at who he's supporting and who he's attacking. Pretty clear-cut consistency going on there for anyone who wants to pay attention. But I'm not going to give you the answer. Here's one of those do your own research, use your brain things. Would love for any of you who wants to call into the Blog Talk version of Tap Into the Truth this Sunday and give me the answer to that question. Which branch of Islam, Sunni or Shia, does the occupier appear to support? That'll be a great question. And anyone who actually does call in and answers that question correctly will get 10 additional chances in the drawing for the August prize pack for new followers. You do have to at least follow the show in one or the other in order to be eligible for that, by the way. But 10 extra chances in the drawing. Mary will be happy to tell you what a great prize package it is. In the meanwhile, we are down under 2 minutes left in tonight's broadcast. And I'm going to implore you, let's defend the guy, but let's stop talking about the rodeo clown and let's get focused again on what in fact are two very obvious acts of treason that Obama has already got in the works. He's already said he's going to do it. And that is sending this additional aid to Al-Qaeda in Syria and signing the UN Small Arms Treaty, because that is an act of treason. It negates the Second Amendment and further allows him to utilize UN troops to enforce the terms of said treaty. That's why the Senate rejected it. It takes away U.S. sovereignty. We can't be turning over our sovereignty to the UN. Not now, not ever. And we can no longer stand back and let this buffoon this front man for the so-called progressives, continue to shred our Constitution and use it to wipe his backside with. That's not what it's for. And it infuriates me to no end that this man has no more respect for our history and for our forefathers' vision than what he has. Ladies and gentlemen, that has to be tonight's show, but I am just getting fired up about this. I've got to go. Remember, though, don't take my word for it. Definitely don't take their word for it. Take a little time, do your own research, use your brain, and always be prepared to work just a little bit harder so that you can always tap into the truth. Have a great night, everybody. Hope to see you back again at the next broadcast. Good night.